Welcome back to Literal BS. I'm your host, Rob, and today we're diving into what may be one of the most consequential Supreme Court decisions you haven't heard enough about. Just days ago, the court issued an emergency ruling that could fundamentally reshape American education for generations, and not in a good way. The Supreme Court's recent emergency ruling allowing the administration to proceed with dismantling the Department of Education represents a dangerous precedent that fundamentally undermines both constitutional governance and educational equity in America. Let's be clear about what's happening here. This isn't administrative reorganization, it's constitutional overreach enabled by judicial abdication. The administration is attempting to eliminate a cabinet-level department established by Congress without congressional approval. This violates the basic principle that what Congress creates, only Congress can destroy. The executive branch doesn't get to unilaterally dismantle agencies simply because it disagrees with their mission. The court's willingness to grant this emergency stay reveals a troubling pattern of deference to executive power that ignores statutory obligations. When you fire 1,400 employees and scatter an agency's core functions across departments lacking specialized expertise, you're not reorganizing, you're sabotaging the agency's ability to fulfill its legal mandates. Consider the practical consequences. The Department of Education doesn't just push paperwork, it enforces civil rights protections for millions of students with disabilities, oversees Title IX compliance, and ensures federal education dollars reach the students who need them most. These aren't abstract bureaucratic functions, they're lifelines for vulnerable populations. When you fragment these responsibilities across agencies without educational expertise, you're guaranteed to see enforcement gaps, inconsistent implementation, and ultimately, students falling through the cracks. Is the Department of Labor handling student loan servicing? Is the Department of Health managing special education compliance? This isn't efficiency, it's chaos by design. The court's reliance on the shadow docket for such a consequential decision compounds the problem. Major policy changes affecting millions of Americans deserve full deliberation, not rushed emergency rulings without oral arguments or detailed explanations. These procedural shortcuts erode public confidence in judicial decision-making and deny stakeholders the transparency they deserve. From a federalism perspective, this decision weakens states' ability to navigate federal education policy. A single, specialized department provides clarity and consistency. When these functions are scattered across multiple agencies, states face the nightmare of dealing with conflicting guidance, overlapping jurisdictions, and bureaucratic confusion that will ultimately harm students. The timing couldn't be worse. American education faces unprecedented challenges: learning loss from the pandemic, teacher shortages, and growing inequality. This is precisely when we need stronger, not weaker, federal coordination and oversight. Dismantling the department's capacity during this crisis is educational malpractice. The court's decision also sets a dangerous precedent for executive power. If an administration can effectively eliminate a cabinet department through mass layoffs and administrative reshuffling, what prevents future presidents from dismantling other agencies they dislike? This approach turns the separation of powers into a dead letter. Finally, let's acknowledge what this represents: an ideological assault on public education disguised as administrative reform. The goal isn't efficiency or state empowerment, it's the systematic weakening of federal protections that ensure equal educational opportunity for all Americans. The Supreme Court should have recognized that some emergency stays cause more harm than they prevent. By allowing this dismantling to proceed, the court has prioritized administrative convenience over constitutional governance and educational justice. The real emergency here isn't the lower court's injunction, it's the precedent we're setting for how democracy functions in America. This decision will be remembered as a moment when the court chose ideology over institutional integrity, and millions of students will pay the price for that choice. That's today's analysis on policy and power. The legal battle over the Department of Education will continue in the courts, but the damage to our constitutional system and educational infrastructure is already underway. The question isn't whether we can afford to maintain federal oversight of education, it's whether we can afford to lose it. Thanks for listening. If this analysis resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to understand what's at stake. This is Rob with my 2 cents on this. Until next time, keep questioning power and keep holding our institutions accountable.